Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a good day. So, the Switch 2, is it coming? Is it not coming? Nobody's really sure. There was a general feeling that maybe the recent Nintendo Direct would sort of give us a better idea either way whether or not the Switch 2 is coming. I don't really think it has. There's a lot of good stuff that's coming this year for the Switch, but at the same time a lot of it is remasters, which is kind of what happens sometimes at the end of Nintendo's current generations. We get a lot of remasters, so who knows, the signs could be pointing either way really. Either way, it got me thinking about what I would actually want in Nintendo's new console, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So right off the bat, I think it's worth saying that I don't really think or want Nintendo to reinvent the wheel completely. I don't think they need to go in a crazy new direction like they often do for their consoles. I think a Switch 2 is kind of the perfect way to go. There's been so much interest in that console, and I think they still would be in a Switch 2, just, you know, something more powerful. However, at the same time, there are quite a few changes that I would like them to make, and that's sort of what I'm going to go through today to sort of create my ideal Switch 2 console. So the obvious place to start is the power of the console, you know, how it's going to perform, what kind of game it's going to play. I think really the Steam Deck has shown that a handheld can be much more powerful than the Switch. I'm not saying I would need it to be the same power as the Steam Deck because I understand it comes with certain drawbacks, things like the size and things like the battery life. However, at the same time, we definitely need an upgrade over the Switch. We will definitely get one, but I thought it was just worth putting it out there. We need an upgrade from the Switch. I think 720p for handheld is still absolutely fine. The Steam Deck does it. It works fine. I don't think you really need 1080p on a handheld. Again, that's something that will drain the battery quite a bit. But we definitely need 1080p docked, and I would almost say that this almost needs to be like a guaranteed 1080p locked for a Switch 2. Like I think you're sort of getting to that point where if you had games running at less on docked, then that's going to feel really bad. So I kind of think that you would need enough power to be able to guarantee 1080p on most, if not all, games running at a stable frame rate, you know, 30 FPS. 60 would be brilliant. I would love 60. I understand it's probably not too feasible. So 1080p 30, pretty much locked in, would be amazing for docked. And yeah, 720p I think would be okay for in handheld. Like I said, I understand that a lot of these things have a trade-off in battery life, so there would need to be a balance there. I think the battery life does need to be perhaps a little bit better than the Steam Deck, at least for like the majority of games. You know, you could have the odd game here or there that sort of like takes it down to that 2 or 3 hour mark like the Steam Deck, but I wouldn't expect it to be pushing the same graphics capabilities as the Steam Deck, and so you know, you would hope that battery life was better. Okay, so that's the power out the way. That one I feel was kind of like the obvious one, so I wanted to get that done really quickly. We're going to move on now to the build of the system, and this is where I think there are some you know, changes that I would make that maybe not everybody would like, or maybe not everybody would think of. So first of all, I don't like the way you hold a normal Switch. I don't like the Joy-Cons. I don't really like the lack of a grip on there, especially playing the Steam Deck has shown me how much better it can feel when you have something proper to grip on. So I kind of would like a Switch 2 to have a different design to the sort of flat Joy-Cons that you get on the Switch 1. Something that makes it more ergonomic. I put my Switch in a grip that gives it handles to hold. I would really like that to sort of come out of the box like that, a better shape for holding, especially if you're going to play it for a long time in handheld mode. It needs to have a better shape for me. And then I actually want it to be smaller. I know that that's not the way things are going at the moment. Things are getting bigger. You know, the Switch was better than the 3DS. The Steam Deck is better than the Switch. I don't want it to get bigger. I actually would like it to be smaller, a little bit more smaller, something more portable, but with, you know, less bezels around the edge. So for example, what I'm kind of picturing something the size of the Switch Lite, but with much less wasted space around the edge of the screen, you know, sort of use that whole space and sort of see how that looks. I just, like I say, I want something that's a bit more smaller, a bit more portable, just something that I feel is a little bit more, you can carry it around with you everywhere, as opposed to the Switch and the Steam Deck where I don't really feel like you can do those. And then just since we were talking about the Switch Lite, I actually would like it to be one whole compact system like the Switch Lite. I completely understand the reasoning behind the Joy-Cons. I completely understand why people like them. You know, you've instantly got those 2 separate controllers in the box that you can play with in docked mode. And also if you have any issues with your controllers, and you know, drift absolutely is an example of this, then you don't need to send the whole system away for repairing. So I do understand the reasons for separate Joy-Cons, but it just makes the Switch feel a bit more flimsy to me. It feels a little bit more delicate. It's almost like 3 separate pieces cobbled together rather than one sort of solid unit. It feels delicate, if that makes sense. And so for me personally, I know this isn't the same for everybody. That's why I would like one whole system without any controllers that you can separate off. And of course I would really like an OLED screen just to round off the build. I think that after seeing the Switch OLED and playing that, I think it would be a big step back to go to a non-OLED screen. Again, there is that sort of like, will it affect battery life? I'm not sure. But if Nintendo can make it work with an OLED screen, that would be perfect. Okay, so we're going to talk about the dock next, and really there's only a couple of things to say about this. The dock works absolutely fine on the current Switch. You don't need to change it that much. Obviously, like I said before, I would like something Switch-like size that you can dock, whereas with the current Switch Lite you can't dock it, so take away that barrier. But also, an idea that I had was that I would like a way to dock the console without actually cutting off the console, if that makes sense. So it can come with a dock absolutely fine, but perhaps also it comes with a cable that you plug in and it sort of connects to the TV that way. And it would have to be a long cable, I understand, so this might not be practical. But what I'm thinking is if you can plug it in and connect to the TV without cutting off the screen, then you can almost have this Wii U or 3DS-like functionality where you sort of have the main game on your TV and then you sort of have something else happening on the actual the tablet, you know, the Switch 2. And that way it kind of opens up the possibility. Maybe it's just the map on there, maybe it's your bag, maybe it's various control schemes, things like that. This one isn't very likely, but I just think it would be cool. I never had a Wii U, but I did always like the idea of how you could do that. You could have one thing on the telly and one thing on your screen separately. And I always liked that idea. I thought it was clever. And I don't see why you couldn't do it with the Switch 2, although, like I say, I don't think they will. It's just kind of like a wish from me, really. I think it would be really cool to do that. Okay, so we're going on to software now. Software is obviously a big factor for any console. You need to have good software, you need to have good games on it. But there's lots of round games as well, the way that the system is built. And that's sort of what we're going to focus on more. So first of all, backwards compatibility is a must. Nintendo, I know they have a habit of this. They absolutely cannot bring out a Switch 2 or a new console without it being backwards compatible with the Switch 1. I think it would just be insane. There's so many people who have a Switch, so many people who have a collection of Switch games. If they're left without a way to play those games on a newer console, I think people would be very, very unhappy with that. Nintendo would lose a lot of goodwill that they've sort of built up over the last 6 years. A lot of that popularity. I can kind of see people not buying a Switch 2 for a long time if they can't play their Switch 1 games on there, because, you know, you're only going to have so many Switch 2 games that come out at the same time. So yeah, backwards compatibility is an absolute must. And I think as well, the software, Nintendo needs to take a bit of a leaf from its own book from the past. So in the past, Nintendo had lots of little quirky software ideas that they just haven't done with the Switch at all. And I think they need to go back a little bit. For example, I talk about it a lot when I talk about 3DS, but the Street Pass feature is amazing. And I don't really see why they didn't do it with the Switch 1. And if they do sort of go along the path that I would like, which is a slightly smaller system, then they could bring back something like Street Pass. People will be more inclined to take their Switches around with them everywhere they go, and so they can have that back. And not just that, something like the Mi Plaza on the Wii U. Again, I didn't have a Wii U, but I've seen the Mi Plaza stuff. I know it would be impossible to sort of regulate, and how they would control what people could see, I don't know. But I just think that things like Mi Plaza and Street Pass give such a sense of community, I suppose, to these consoles. I think it would really bring that back. You kind of lost that with the Switch a little bit compared to the old consoles. You can't even chat on the Switch, you know, you have to go through the mobile phone app and it's a bit rubbish. Probably the game with the closest sense of community is something like Splatoon 2 and 3, where you can sort of draw the pictures and you can see those in the plaza, and that's about it when it comes to sense of community. So I would love them to at least bring something back on the Switch 2, something along those lines, something like Street Pass, something like Mi Plaza. I think it does just bring the players a bit closer together, gives them other ways to sort of have fun with their console that's not just playing games. Continuing on then, so the Switch has got to do better with time tracking. I know it shouldn't be a big deal, but it kind of does feel like a big deal sometimes when you sort of trying to work out, you know, you want to look back, you're like, oh, which game have I played the most? And you can only see the last 10 games you played, and you can only see them in increments of 5 hours. And if you bought a game within the last 10 days, you still can't see it. You know, bring back the time tracking functionality from the 3DS. That's perfect. You don't need to improve upon it. Just do that again in a Switch 2. That would be perfect. Something else you can bring from the 3DS as well are things like folders and themes and the badges. Just these things that make your console feel more personal to you. That kind of thing, that's completely gone with the Switch. We've got, black and white themes. I know we're starting to get profile icons now with the Nintendo Switch Online, and that's a good step forward, but it's a very small step forward quite late into the Switch's life. So yeah, badges, themes, and folders. Basically just ways to customize the software and how your Switch looks when you turn it on, I think would be great. Just generally, I would like it to feel like more effort went into the software. Just something that's there that it feels like Nintendo built for players to have fun with the console rather than just have fun with the games. I don't know if that makes sense or if anybody will agree, but that's kind of what feels like it's missing from the Switch for me. Okay, so the last section we're going to talk about now is sort of to do with games, online services, that kind of thing. I have two main points, and the first one is the Nintendo Switch Online subscription. And specifically, I mean the subscription service that lets you play older games. Now, this isn't really the route that I would have liked Nintendo to go down for the Switch. I'm in the camp of wanting the virtual console where you can just buy the individual games you want. I would much rather that, and then you kind of own them forever. You know, as long as your console works and there's a place to download the games from, you know, then you own them forever. They're obviously not going down that route. They're going down the subscription service instead, and business-wise, I understand why, but it just kind of sucks for the consumer a little bit. What they have to do is they have to launch a Switch 2 with that subscription service ready to go out of the gate with all of those consoles that are already on the Switch 1 ready. You cannot start again from scratch like they always seem to do with a new console. You can't half-bake this. You can't say, oh, this service is coming in 6 months or a year. No, it has to be ready to go straight away. SNES, NES, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, all of that, it has to be ready to go straight away, all the games that are on there. And then they have to keep building those libraries and keep adding new consoles. If there's a Switch 2 and it's got more power, then that means they can add more powerful consoles to the back catalogue. There needs to be a sense of continuity from the Switch 1 to the Switch 2, and it needs to be with these backwards compatible games. PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5, you can do it. Like I said, you can play all of your old games and the service is the same. It matches across both systems. Same with Xbox. The Switch has to do the same thing. I know that Nintendo likes to stand out in certain ways, but this can't be the way they stand out because this will be a negative way to stand out. So you have to have that subscription service that carries through onto the Switch 2. And then finally, this is possibly a little bit of a big ask, but really I think they should release a tie-in game that comes with the Switch 2 to show off the system's capabilities. Think something like Astro's Playroom, think something like Wii Sports on the original Wii, or something like 1-2 Switch should have been a tie-in game. You know, something like that to show you exactly what the Switch 2 can do. If they do give it some new gimmicks, you know, I don't know, maybe they give the controllers a very similar feature set to the PlayStation 5, then, you know, make a little game that shows exactly what the console can do. I don't know, maybe make something that shows you what the Switch can do handheld versus docked, what the new controllers can do, that kind of thing, and make it free and make it fun. Astro's Playroom is a perfect example of this, for sure. Like, people love that game. I'm sure Nintendo could do something really charming. I don't know, they could use a Wario, they could do something similar to WarioWare, or, you know, they just have so many characters that people love that I'm sure would be happy to be put into a game that shows you how the console works. And I think that's a really good way to A, make you feel like you've got a worthwhile deal out of paying what's probably going to be £300, £400, £500 for a new console, and B, it's going to get people talking, isn't it? You're going to have people that have got the Switch 2, and maybe there's not that many games out, so there's a little bit of discussion, but if you have made this good sort of show-off game for the system, everyone's going to be talking about it. It's going to be all over Twitter, Reddit, social media. It's just going to build some interest in the system when people see what it can do. Okay, so there we have it. Those are the things that I would really like in a Switch 2. I really would like Nintendo to do most, if not all of these. I don't know if they will. You know, there are some things that I can see would maybe be a bit of a bigger ask, but you know, this is personally for me, that would sort of make it the perfect console for me, I think. Anyway, what do you guys think? Do you want a similar console to me? Do you want something totally different? Do you want a Switch 2 successor, or do you want like something completely out of left field where it's a totally different console entirely and it's not backwards compatible, you know, sort of like when they went from the Wii U to the Switch and it's just a completely different idea? Yeah, just let me know down in the comments what you want. It's always really interesting to hear what people think because everybody's different and everybody wants different things, so it's great to read that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please do like and subscribe. It really helps me out. When I'm recording this, we've just passed 500 subscribers, which is incredible to me. I'd love to make it 1,000, you know, that would be amazing. So thank you so much for everyone who has subscribed recently. And if you've not yet, then please do. It really does help me out. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next episode.